Ryan, welcome to the show. How's everything with yourself, brother?
Everything is fantastic, Simon. I'm stoked to be here chatting with you today, brother, and really excited to share some value to your audience, man. Thanks for having me on your show.
No, first things first, I want to say congratulations on the book. I've thoroughly enjoyed researching you and just obviously seeing the book build. So congrats on that.
Thank you, man.
It's something that I really want to delve into because I really think it's important is functional health. And we had a show with AJ, and this is how we obviously got connected. And I really can't wait to delve into this topic given everything that's going on in the world. And I've become a massive advocate over the past 4 years of just how do I show up for the world better? And it's kind of like getting on top of your own health and all that sort of stuff. But Ryan, look, before we jump into all of the topics I want to go into, because you're new to the show, you're new to our audience, I'd love to first find out more about you because I always feel that everyone who's doing something great in the world has an incredible story. And I know that you're no different to that. So Ryan, tell us a little bit about you. What's your story? How did you get into it? How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so I got into health at a pretty early age. And what brought me into this field was, a real tragedy. So when I was 14, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And, back then we were doing kind of most of the standard recommendations that kind of the government tells people, eating like the food guide pyramids, just kind of going about life, not thinking twice about health and disease. And it really struck our family hard. And, she kind of went through the standard of care, chemo, radiation, surgery. And unfortunately, it only made her situation worse and destroyed her immune system function. And, a short 2 years later, she passed away in large part due to some of these harsh treatments she underwent. And a lot of the misinformation, a lot of the oncologists telling her that what you eat doesn't matter. This is your only option. All the natural alternative approaches don't work. And all this just nonsense, Simon. And it just really was destructive to our family, as I'm sure you can imagine. And it was just so heartbreaking to lose the person I loved most in the world. And so I really went on this path to figure out everything I could learn. And it started from a personal standpoint because I wasn't in the best shape myself. I was dealing with a little bit of depression, low energy, carrying around some extra weight. I had some digestive issues and skin issues of my own. And, I wanted to make sure I was optimally healthy. I didn't want to die prematurely. I didn't want to have to be susceptible to, the standard of care treatment for some of these chronic illnesses. And as I took a deep dive into this world of functional medicine and naturopathic medicine that I'm in now, just a whole new philosophy opened up to me. And it was so remarkable to see all of these other practitioners and physicians who were helping people get well without drugs and surgery, without, harsh chemotherapy, but just by rebalancing the body and putting in the right inputs and the right environmental changes and supporting the body's natural innate healing abilities. And the profound shifts I experienced throughout my journey in my own personal health from a performance standpoint and also from just a quality of life and body composition and all these different facets, it was just remarkable. And so I ended up pursuing post-grad school after my bachelor's in naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, clinical nutrition, all that kind of good stuff. And,
is that what the certificates
practice.
are behind you?
Yeah. So opened up my practice shortly after that. And it's been, that's kind of how it's been ever since, helping people get well and really working with patients day in and day out, everyone ranging from people who are chronically ill to people who maybe like yourself, entrepreneurs, hard charging, who just want to take their health to the next level, or maybe a, standard person who's carrying around 30, 40 extra pounds of weight and having a tough time with their energy and their sleep and their sex drive and all sorts of other issues. And just realizing that, hey, going to a physician and getting pharmaceutical drugs thrown at me may not be the best solution. Maybe I should look at what the root causes of these issues rather than trying to suppress the symptoms. And so that's really my philosophy. And I want to say one thing: I'm not against conventional medicine or allopathic medicine. Everything has their place and time. And I've been in some pretty rough dirt bike accidents that I'm glad that there were doctors to, stitch me up and help me out, man. But when it comes to chronic disease, our modern medical system is just really falling short. And there's just a lot of corruption and a lot of misinformation floating around out there, man.
Yeah, I've actually got a pretty interesting story, I think, which can segue perfectly into where we want to go with this. So I was a few years ago, I was doing the whole fitness thing. I was very deep into the fitness industry, and this is where I found my love of like the functional medicine stuff, and really understanding that this really does go beyond nutrition. And I ended up I had skin issues all over the chest, like lots of different things, like chronic inflammation. And I kept going to the doctors, and it was crazy. So I'd be being sent to someone for a symptom issue, and they'd only look at that one area. And then what it actually took was I managed to sort myself out over a couple of years, was I actually realized like a lot of these issues were actually coming from my gut. And even though I was being sent there to go to a dermatologist or to go to someone like for inflammation in the joints, no one ever came up, or no one ever pointed to the actual issue, that it was a parasite in the gut. And this is why I absolutely fell in love with this sort of area. And I love everything that you do and what you speak about and what you teach. Now, with regards to this sort of stuff, I kind of want to hone in on the importance of like gut health. So for me, the more I've looked into this and the more I've researched, and you're obviously a million miles ahead in terms of like what you've done and what you've learned on it, the gut really is a huge part of human health, human cognition, everything. It's a massive game player. And everyone just thinks about nutrition as nutrition, but no one ever actually pays love to the one system and the one organ that can probably benefit everything. So I'd love to speak to you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're completely right, man. Our microbiome, I mean, comprises the majority of our immune system function. It really ties together, like you said, with our brain function, you know, kind of going towards this gut-brain axis. And it has a lot to do with our hormones, which really dictate our energy and how we feel and our body composition and all these other factors that, you know, a lot of people overlook. And like you said, you know, with allopathic medicine, they have different specialties for good reason, because the body is just so complex. But the problem with, you know, trying to break each thing into a different department is that it lacks that holistic view. It lacks the knowledge and insights of saying, hey, you know, there's so many different facets and pillars to health that may not be getting addressed just by putting some topical cream on a rash. You know, your body's not deficient in that topical cream, right? So we have to really go back to this kind of root cause standpoint and say, what is really at the root of this issue, and start to resolve that and rebalance and recalibrate the body in a way that's going to bring long-term results. And, you know, along the process, I'm sure you experienced not only resolution of your, you know, skin rash, but also a lot of benefits in other areas of your health and your life, I'm sure.
Game changer, absolute game changer. Cognition. I didn't realize, because I'd had this for so long, and I think this is a brilliant topic actually. A lot of people don't actually realize what energy is. You get so used to your set point in life that you never really get to see above that. Does that make sense? So when I started working on it, I was taking probiotics. I did a whole removal protocol and all that sort of stuff. I was like, holy, like I've never had this energy, like sex drive, cognition, hormones, and the skin getting better. I was recovering better after workouts. It was a faceted benefit. But going back to what you said then, I actually noticed when I was actually putting the skin creams on and stuff like that, it was getting better for a week, but then it was getting worse in the long run. And then the more I started to look at it, I was actually realizing a lot of the treatments were actually like trying to put a plaster over a gaping wound without addressing the wound, which is a big thing.
It's unfortunate, but that's kind of the system that, you know, conventional medicine follows, is just symptom suppression. And then you're kind of, as the saying goes, robbing Peter to pay Paul. You know, you're trying to somewhat resolve this topical or this superficial problem, and then you develop other underlying health issues due to the side effects of that particular intervention or therapy. And so that's really a big issue. And like you said, with the cognitive function, in addition to mental clarity, focus, concentration, you know, our gut is also a big source of mental health disorders such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and so on, because, you know, a lot of our neurotransmitters, these feel-good brain chemicals like serotonin and dopamine, are made in the gut. So when you have these imbalances, what's often called dysbiosis in your microbiome, your gut is not producing and synthesizing the right levels of these neurotransmitters, which translate to a lot of different health ailments. And as I'm sure you're aware, depression has become the #1 leading cause of disability worldwide. hundreds of millions of people are suffering from this, and it's not like they have a Prozac deficiency, Simon. And I'm not against some of these different pharmaceuticals because they can provide some benefit, especially in severe cases that could be life-saving, but they only make the situation worse long term. And then you become dependent on these drugs, and it's never actually resolving the underlying imbalances that are leading to these issues.
This is perfect. You kind of get caught in a cyclical cycle, don't you, with that? Because if you think like you're not addressing the actual why am I feeling depressed, all that sort of stuff, and it's coming from the gut, stress then makes the gut even worse. So you're just going around in this circle of actually getting things worse. It's not actually putting the thing in which can stop the cycle. On
Yeah.
this, Ryan, I'd love to get your expertise. I'd love to jump down this. A lot of the time when we've been speaking or we've been listening to people's problems and it's coming down to a health thing like bloating, cramps, struggling with digestion, entrepreneurs with stress who feel like every time they eat, they've eaten a brick. A lot of things, again, kind of fall down to this. I'd love to kind of speak to you more about the gut. Like, I really think that both from getting people really switched on mentally, but also kind of longevity, health, and hormonally, it's a massive part. So if we were to kind of like do a bit of a bullet point thing, like how can we improve the one system that can probably help every system? Where would we start? Where would we start with this?
I love this question because I'm all about the practical how-tos when it comes to, because we can talk theory all day long, but people want to know the nitty-gritty. Like, all right, just tell me what to do to start kind of resolving some of these problems. And so, of course, our diet is huge because a lot of the foods that we're eating, people think of fuel from our nutrition just like we're some sort of machine, but we're these complex organisms that, all of these different facets of food have different inflammatory effects and different effects within our gut. So what we really want to start doing is eliminating some of the common suspects. And like you alluded to when you kind of went down this gut journey, doing some variation of an elimination style diet is really the surefire way to start to identify some of the culprit foods that are causing gut distress and really imbalances in the body and issues within your body, because everyone's different. We're all biologically unique. So I wish it was as simple to say everyone needs to eat this specific way, but it just doesn't work like that. There's no such thing as a food that's healthy for everyone. We can all have a sensitivity or reaction to a food that's generally recognized as healthy. Let's say wild caught salmon, great for probably 99+% of people, but you could be in that 1% where it causes some sort of reaction, you get some sort of sensitivity, and that food is not a superfood for you. And so what we want to do is really get back to the basics. And oftentimes, many of the common triggers with gut distress come down to conventional grains. So a lot of the wheat-based, grain products such as crackers and breads and pastas. And, people understand these are not healthy foods, these refined carbohydrates, but it's really the way that our modern wheat has been so hybridized that's causing a lot of inflammation in the gut, causing a lot of that bloating and a lot of these issues. And then legumes and beans can oftentimes be a little bit hard on the gut. And what a lot of people don't realize, Simon, is many vegetables, many plant foods that are widely recognized as just the holy grail of nutrition have a built-in defense system that protects them from predators. So animals, they could run away, they could attack you. Plants are just kind of there out in the open. They don't have a way of really defending themselves, right? So they have these chemical defense systems, things like lectins, oxalates, phytic acid, and so forth, that make it so they're actually plant toxins. So when animals eat these plants, they get some degree of digestive issues, some degree of toxicity. They don't want to eat those plants anymore. And a lot of these plants that people recognize as healthy can oftentimes be culprits to the gut. So some of the common suspects are nightshade vegetables, so things like tomatoes, peppers, like bell peppers, hot peppers, eggplants, also things like these FODMAP foods, as they're referred to as, which is an acronym, stands for these fermentable polyundisaccharide foods, things like onions and garlic, that can cause a lot of that gas and bloating in a lot of people. And so I find when I'm doing some level of elimination style diet, pulling a lot of these foods out and pulling out a lot of the raw fiber. So these big ass salads that people think like, yeah, I'm eating healthy today, I'm having a big old salad, and then you feel all bloated afterwards. Raw fiber is very hard to break down. It's very rough on the intestines, especially if you have some degree of inflammatory bowel disease, whether that's diverticulitis or ulcerative colitis or any type of IBS. that fiber is just going to wreak havoc and cause a lot of aggravation in the intestines. And so drawing out all the raw vegetable fibers, whether you're going for fresh pressed juice to still get those micronutrients, or even just getting those same nutrients through high quality animal foods, which I'm a huge proponent of. I think the vegan movement has a lot of things kind of misdirected, because high quality animal foods are some of the most nutrient dense bioavailable sources of nutrition. And that's very different than the conventional factory farmed animal foods that many people are eating. But grass fed, grass finished beef and lamb, wild caught fish, pasture raised eggs and poultry, even these wild game meats like venison and wild boar and elk, these foods are what humans have evolved to thrive on for thousands of years. They're very healing to the body. They supply us with a plethora of micronutrients. And then I'm a huge proponent of bone broth, where you simmer a lot of the collagen and connective tissue and bones down into a broth that just has these amino acids that really help to heal the gut lining, really supports our overall health, bring down inflammation. So from a nutritional standpoint, really bringing in the bulk of your diet from healthy fats, high quality animal proteins, and then really being wise about your vegetable options. And that's kind of varies from person to person, as we talked about. And then what I find to be super helpful for healing the gut as well is starting to rebalance the microbiome through targeted probiotic therapy. So a lot of people have
I've
heard.
never heard of this.
Yeah. So a lot of people have heard, probiotics are great. I'm sure you've taken them. Most people have. You go down to your health food store, you see a probiotic, you're like, oh man, 50 billion CFU, that's a lot. That must be a great probiotic, right? Well, not exactly. That's all marketing, man. What it really comes down to is implanting the right types of bacteria. And there's really three categories of probiotics when it comes to rebalancing the gut. You have your Lactobacillus bifidobacterium strains, which are your standard probiotics. And these are very efficacious. I really like these strains, even though they have been shown in studies not to make it past the acidity in our stomach. They can really help to provide a lot of benefits through different mechanisms. So those are a great option. Another option is a healthy yeast management probiotic called Saccharomyces boulardii. A lot of people that are dealing with this bloating, this gas, these GI distress, it's because they have inadequate production of hydrochloric acid, aka stomach acid, and digestive enzymes from our pancreas. And the reason the production of those enzymes and stomach acid are downregulated is because they have an overgrowth of yeast or fungus in the gut, causing these imbalances. So by bringing in some Saccharomyces boulardii, could really help put any type of yeast overgrowth like a candida overgrowth in check, and then coupling that with other therapies when that's the specific scenario. Without getting too deep down that rabbit hole, the third probiotic is going to be a spore-forming soil-based probiotic. Now, these are the ones that are extremely resilient. They do make it past the stomach acid. They have great implant in the small intestine. And these are the category of probiotics I get the best results with my patients in my practice. And this would be two companies come to mind. Megaspore is one, and the other one is Just Thrive Probiotic. And these are these specific spore-forming probiotics that are very efficacious in rebalancing the guts and implanting some good guys to help crowd out the bad guys, because it's all about the balance, right?
Yeah, 100%. I love how you've literally just talked about how I had to fix myself. I'll actually tell you this story because it's pretty hilarious, and it'll add some comical. It'll make someone laugh on the journey to work. So I once went on a functional medicine course, or it was more like not functional medicine. It was more like in-depth nutrition for like hormones. Basically on the course, this is why I think the big takeaway from this story with our audience is it depends on you. One man's poison can be another man's remedy. And for me, that was the exact case. I was taking information from what other people were doing. And I went, of course, it's like selenium in Brazil nuts is one of the best foods that you can have for helping natural testosterone elevations. So me being very young and naive, 21, I went and cleared all of the Brazil nuts off the shelves, cleared them, took them home. I was chinning them, absolutely chinning. Ridiculous on calories, point number one. But point number two, my body did not like Brazil nuts. So the first month I was having my Brazil nuts for my breakfast. I'd get into work, which is a 20-minute drive to where I worked at the time. And suddenly I'd be like, run to the toilet. By month 2, I was not making it to work like at all. I was having to U-turn find a garage or find a field. It was awful. And then by point number 3, this is when it just exploded, like skin, inflammation, the works. And I really think from what you were saying before is sometimes we look at what everyone else is doing. What are Peter, Keith, and Sharon doing to get results? Why did they feel great? I'm going to follow that. That's exactly what I did. I looked at what people were doing who were predominantly successful in the fitness physique world. I went and did it. It crippled my health and it took me 2 years to recover. But then off the back of that, I actually had to go through that entire process of what you spoke about. And it took me, I can't even explain how many people I went to get that advice, what you just said. And it was the advice that worked, was you have to eliminate. It's a slow process. You've got to really kind of like find the thing. So I'm actual real life evidence of what you're saying is the correct way to build things back up. But the best thing what I want to speak about that is I'm kind of glad it happened, because doing that gave me more than what I had before I started. So although there was this middle ground of pain and not being confident in the skin, because I had this chest rash at the time, I actually got this new lease of life through energy, hormones. I think I'd unraveled a lot of damage I'd done in my younger years and stuff along the lines of that. So I love what you're saying, because that's actually the process that I went through, and I can't eat Brazil nuts.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing story, man. And the biggest key to that is you gained that valuable perspective. Now, a lot of people that either go through life without health issues, they take their health for granted. They don't think twice about it. They just think, oh, this is just what it is. It's just how life is. And they don't really value and have that sense of appreciation and gratitude for being symptom-free, disease-free. And then you have the other side of the coin, where people go through life with brain fog, obesity, low energy, low sex drive, terrible sleep, all these different issues and inflammatory conditions and bowel distress. And they just think that's how life is. They never get to the stage you got to, where they can look back at their former self a year, 2, 3 years ago and say, wow, I cannot believe I accepted that as my new normal. That is absurd. We are all designed to feel good, to be happy, to thrive in life. And it's not until you kind of go through this evolution and this journey that you even understand how good you can really feel. So it's something that anyone listening in who's struggling with health issues, I want to tell you right now, there is no condition that is irreversible. The body is miraculous at healing when given the right inputs and the right environment. And do not accept any problematic symptom as your new normal. Understand there are ways to overcome that, and you can overcome that with the right protocols and the right targeted therapies. And I mean, I see it in my practice every day. People who just live for 20, 30 years with a severe gut destroying symptom or some sort of really just terrible way of life. And once we kind of sort through all these issues, we get them back on track, we rebound and heal their body. They're like, oh my gosh, Ryan, I didn't know this is what life was supposed to be like. This is insane.
Yeah, I fully can agree with that. I think one of the biggest things as well is, I think a big shift for me was first point on that is, I want to say that I really feel that this was one of my first biggest like learning lessons with regards to how aware am I of myself. Because once I had to go, do you know what? I need to put my fat loss results, like looking 6% all year round, to the side. I actually have to prioritize my health here. And the thing that I found is like, you kind of, you have to work out, that was the initial thing, like how important is my health? How much is it affecting? But then it's more of a case of like actually becoming consciously aware of habits, sleep, daylight exposure, stress, food habits, do you know what I mean, that have been ingrained in there since I was a child. I think when you really kind of start this venture route down there, you really start to become a lot more aware of what you're doing personally, what you're consuming, how that makes you feel 10, 15, 20 minutes after. And then I think also it kind of going down this route, you've both got to go through the priority shift, but you also learn how important the body as a machine is and how things do take time. So for me, I did 1, 2, 3 years of damage, the works. There was a lot of damage that was done. So to obviously undo that, it's not going to happen in a week. It's not like a magic pill thing where I'm going to be fixed in a month. You've really got to go, do you know what? I'm working on my health. This is going to take time. I've really fucked myself up for the past 24 years. I accept and honor the fact this might take a bit longer than a month to get right. And do
Yeah,
you kind of feel that
100%.
that's a big mindset shift for people, is getting them away from what the fitness industry has created as this quick pill mentality?
Yeah, that's such a disservice to our society, is this whole quick fix mentality. Like, I just want results today. I want to feel better tomorrow. Like, and being understanding of, like you said, you didn't get to this situation you're in overnight. It's not going to resolve overnight. It takes time. Although I will say I get amazing results for people feeling better within a week or two, and then that just snowballs. But you have to look at your health not as this 90-day destination. Like, I just have to do this next 60-day six-pack program that's going to transform me for life. It's like, no, because you know this as well as I do, Simon, the
6 minute
yo-yo
abs.
effect. Yeah, the marketing side of things really corrupts the whole mindset around it. And then you factor in the percentage of people who do go on some strict, crazy protocol or program. They see great results, and then it's just not sustainable. It's not enjoyable. They end up inevitably reverting back to their old ways, and then they gain all the weight back. Then they feel even worse than they did when they started, and they have this constant flux of back and forth, which just wrecks your metabolism. It makes you feel discouraged. It makes you give up hope. And my whole approach is around sustainability. Like, we don't want to be healthy and fit for 90 days. We want to be healthy and fit for 90 years. You know, we
Yep.
want this lifelong health. So we need to build practices that are both enjoyable and sustainable, and things that we can continue, not as some program, but as our new lifestyle. And like you said, I'm all about habit formation techniques, because it needs to come from a place of making these things automatic. Like, it's just the way you do things. It's just the way you live. It's just the way you eat, because that creates this level of adherence that is not relying on this constant discipline and willpower and motivation, because these are finite resources, man. We can only rely on these for so long until we slip up, and then we kind of backtrack. And it's really about creating these habits and these systems that make the entire process feel
Yep.
exponentially easier and just part of your new normal.
Yeah, it's so easy to fall back into old habits, isn't it? It's so, like, if you've been doing that for 98% of your life and you're trying to do this new thing, it's very easy. I'd love to actually speak about you on this, because habits are a major thing, not just in health, but in making anything happen in life. Do you have any kind of like tips or hacks? Obviously, I've always found that people really struggle with beneficial nutritional habits. I've always seen that that's a big thing. Where would you say like the best place is to start for someone? Is there kind of like a tactic you use or anything along the lines of that are really making habits stick or ingraining them into someone's life?
Absolutely. So, couple things on that. First of all, it comes down to making sure the change that you're making is not going to be super time consuming and overthrow your lifestyle, right? We want it to integrate nicely into your lifestyle, making sure it's not making you feel deprived or in this constant state of just lacking, and like you're constantly missing out and missing these different foods or different practices, because that's going to also take a toll on your system. So we want to create new systems and protocols that make you feel amazing, that give you this positive feedback loop. Because when you start eating better, you start sleeping more, you start getting your sun, you start reducing stress, you start taking some good supplements, you start exercising, all these different factors, and you start to see the difference, you start to feel the difference, you get this new sense of energy and vitality that you've never had before. That in itself is going to be the best fuel for your fire to continue down this journey, because now you've seen this firsthand. Like, I went back, I ate the foods that used to mess me up, and I got wrecked. I don't even want those foods anymore, because a few moments of mouth pleasure is not worth feeling like garbage 24/7. And once you understand that fact and you embody it, you could hear it and you could understand it on a conscious level. But as soon as you experience it, I'm all about experiential
Yep.
change. That is when things will start to stick. And then the other big component of that, Simon, that I'm a huge fan of is mindset practices and morning routines, because your mindset is where everything starts.
Yep.
It's not like your life's going to change from eating one healthy meal or going to the gym one time. It's about cultivating the right mindset around all this stuff, the right perspective, and having a deep why. Why are you on this journey? Is it just for vanity goals so you could look good at the beach with your shirt off, or Is it so you could show up as the best person for your kids, or you could show up as the best person in your life so that you could take care of your thrive in your business and have a massive impact on your community and be an example for those around you? I mean, you have to really come back to a deeper reason that's not superficial, because you know, superficial goals lead to superficial and short-lived results. So you need to go deeper. You need to work through some of these mindset practices. And then the way that you start your day with your morning routine is critical. That first 30 minutes, most people are popping on their phone, going on social media, answering work emails, not thinking twice about it. You know, that's just become the automatic norm in our society. And it really puts your mind and your body in a terrible place to start the day. So I'd love to kind of dive deeper into this with you, is this topic of kind of the perfect morning formula to really start your day so that you have the energy, vitality, well-being, and just awesome feeling from a mental and physical standpoint to just crush it, to just feel like on top of the world. And so the first thing I always tell all my patients to do, we'll talk on a couple key components here. So you wake up, and aligning your body to wake up as close to sunrise as possible. I know it varies based on the time of year, based on what part of the world you live in, but trying to have a nice early start to the day so you don't wake up in this feeling of being behind, being, totally trying to play catch up the rest of the day. So getting an early start is critical. And then go outside. You got to get outside and get into that natural sun. Even if it's cloudy or overcast, you're still going to get the natural spectrums of sunlight. And what that's going to do, Simon, it's going to go straight into your eyes, into your brain, into a part of our brain called the hypothalamus, which is going to trigger this cascade of hormonal and metabolic events that's going to enable our body to start burning fat rather than storing it, upregulate our energy producing mechanisms in our body, aka our mitochondria, and start to create this internal environment that signals to your brain and body, all right, it's daytime, let's do this. It naturally starts to wake you up. So before you have any coffee, before you do anything else, step outside in the sunlight, because window glass, even if you put the blinds up, window glass blocks some of that beneficial spectrum. And so once you're outside, you want to hydrate. We lose over a pound of water overnight just through our respiration. So we wake up in a mild state of dehydration every morning. So we want to drink a good chunk of water. Obviously,
so don't reach for the coffee first thing.
Not first thing. An hour after, by all means. I'm not against some good old organic coffee or tea. I'm a big fan myself. But first thing in the morning, you want to start with some good old H2O. And adding some minerals into that water is going to be even better, because with that sunlight hitting your body and your brain, combined with the water and the minerals, it's really creating this positive electrical charge in the body. And that's just going to ramp up energy production. And then while you're outside drinking your water, getting your sunlight for a minimum of about 5 to 10 minutes, more is even better, you're going to do some inner work. Now, whether that's some sort of morning formula anchoring practice, whether that's a meditation, whether that's a walk and just some mindfulness, whether that's some journaling, everyone has their own flavor on this, but just doing some work that helps you go into your body and not become responsive and reactive to the outside world. Giving yourself some time to really set your minds in the right place to get after it during the day. And then after this little 10-minute period, once you've done these essential morning practices, I'm a huge fan of, at this point, feel free, grab a cup of coffee, cup of tea, whatever, suits your preference, and go for a walk. Movements in a fasted state in the morning, this low level physical activity combined with some of the caffeine from the coffee or tea is amazing for mobilizing fatty acids, for upregulating metabolic rate. And I'm not talking like a 2-hour hike. I just mean a 10 to 15 minute walk around your neighborhood, around your house, and you're going to soak up even more of that natural morning sunlight. You're going to continue on this kind of you time. So you could put in a podcast like this one, put on an audiobook. You can do some, thinking. You could call a friend, whatever, you decide to do during this time, but moving your body. Our body, really, when our bodies are in motion, our brain works better. Everything in our body works better. So getting that morning walk is critical. And then coming back from that morning walk, I'm a huge fan of hopping in, quick shower, cold shower, bonus points, going to even be better for all these things we're talking about. And then from there, you've kind of set the stage with this first 30 minutes. You've set yourself up for success. You've gotten some morning sunlight. You've gotten your water intake for hydration. You've done some inner work. You've gotten some movement. Now you're off to the rest of your day to crush it and do whatever it is that you do.
That's my day. That you have literally just talked about my day. I actually, it's so weird because I've never had someone just go, "You need to do this, this, and this." This is all from just trial and error, and that works best for me. So I'm a city boy. So I'm from the dark grey dungeon jungle in England. That's actually where I'm from. And I noticed I started traveling with work and speaking, and I noticed, hang on, every time I'm in these like light, bright climates in the morning, I fly. But then every time I come back home to this wet, grey environment, dark, concreted jungle walls, I really struggle to wake up in the morning. Like really, really struggling. It takes me till like 11, 12. I'm in this sleep hangover. And that was point number one. And I was just like, look, this needs to change. Like if I'm spending 3-4 months out of the country and I'm gaining 5 hours of powerful energy first thing in the morning, I need that, which is why hence I'm now here, because it makes me perform better. I'm more efficient with my time. The other thing that you mentioned on that, which I absolutely love, because I've never had someone discuss it on the show, and I've never known, this is something that I've just found that I do, is mineralized water first thing in the morning. Absolute game changer for me. And I didn't actually realize how dead the majority of our water is. There's no, like, is it electrons that you get from it or something like that, or ions or something like that? So when you place the minerals in it, it recharges the water.
Yeah, so water has an electrical charge, and I mean, we could do an entire podcast just on
Oh,
water, man. Water is fascinating, and if anyone wants to learn more about the concept of water, there's some great books written by like Gerald Pollack, The Fourth Phase of Water. You can look into all sorts of things about water that most people don't know. They think water is water is water. What's the big deal? It comes out of my tap, I put it in my body. They don't think twice, and some people
Mm-mm.
that do think twice filter their water, which you think great. I'm all for filtered water, but when that filtration process takes place and it's pulling out all the chlorine and fluoride and heavy metals and nonsense
Yep.
that's in municipal tap water, you know what it's also pulling out? All
The
of the
good stuff.
minerals and electrolytes and trace minerals that we need, because H2O in itself is only part of the equation. We also need all of these minerals and trace minerals and electrolytes for our cells to actually utilize the water. And we're really electrical beings. And
Yeah.
those minerals create this electrical charge combined with the sunshine. Think of your body as a solar panel, like a battery, and the sunshine coupled with those minerals from the water just creates this environment for our mitochondria, our energy producing mechanisms, to thrive, man. And it's profound. And those minerals like magnesium and all these different, 70 or 80 odd trace minerals really help to supply our digestive system with the right constituents to keep bowel movements healthy. They provide our cells with the right raw materials to keep our cell membrane strong. They provide our brain with key nutrients that we need for cognitive function. I mean, I could go on and on and on about all the benefits of minerals. I mean, you die without them. And most people are living in a constant state of mineral deficiencies. And so
Absolutely.
one product, to make this simple for your listeners, there's a couple products I really like. All you would do is take your, jar of filtered water. Hopefully it's not coming in a plastic bottle, because there's a whole other set of problems with that. And you would add, there's two products I really like for this, where you just add a mineral solution of, about 80 odd ionic trace minerals to your water to really amplify the hydration and health benefits. And one of them is made by a company called Trace Mineral Research. It's
Yeah.
called Concern Trace. And then the other one is called Aussie Minerals. And both of those are taken from very clean sources. One's extracted from the Salton Sea, the other one's extracted from a lake out in Australia, and they both provide you with a plethora of these minerals that we don't really get enough of in our
Yep.
diet, because our soils are so depleted of these trace minerals due to poor farming practices and all sorts of other nonsense going on in the food industry, that many people just adding minerals to water, drinking some water in the morning. I see people just, like you said, light up, say, man, that I didn't think this cheap bottle of minerals and drinking some water would make such a profound difference in how I feel every minute of every day.
Exactly. I mean, even if people don't want to, like, with the supplement things, you could just put some pink rock salts in your water. It's a low cost start, isn't
Very.
it?
Both
Yeah.
are low cost, and you would get a higher quotient of sodium and lower of some of these other minerals,
Yeah.
which is fine for most people. And for men, especially, I would recommend a Celtic sea salt,
Yep.
because pink Himalayan salt is great for women, but it does have a little bit higher iron content. And men tend to bioaccumulate iron. We don't want too much iron. So for guys like you and I, Simon, I would suggest a good Celtic sea salts as a great option for that. And then squeeze a little lemon in there if you want. So you could really doctor up your water to be this just hydration cocktail that just fuels your body for the day. And super, super powerful stuff, man.
Amazing.
And then we didn't even,
I've never heard that
oh,
before, with the regards to the different salts for male and female. So I love that.
yeah. And we didn't even get into structured water, which is a whole another realm in and of itself, which we could save for another time because I don't want to get too deep down the water rabbit hole. But people's water, I mean, when you start structuring the water, you're just talking next level stuff. I'm a huge fan of structured water.
Likewise, it makes me laugh. Like, you can go through your whole life and you don't realize like pretty much 70% of your brain is water, and like the majority of your body is water. But yet the majority of the thing we drink dead water, we don't get what we need. So the first root problem for the majority of people is just water. Just the simplest thing, isn't it?
Start. Great place to start.
The next little thing I'd love to say is, just because this little portion here, which I love that we've gone into, is like, how are we prepping people up to be better through the day? I'm doing a lot of practices right now in my life that 10 years ago I would have laughed at or just not done. I've found huge benefits in both breath work and also cold therapies. And not just for the fact of what they're doing for me physiologically, but more to the point of what I'm getting from them up here as well. And I'd love to speak to you in your background, because I know you bring the whole holistic approach of implementing all these sorts of things. Like, what are the mechanisms? Why do these work? Why do I feel better? Why am I more present? Why can I go out there and crush my day after actually taking my foot off the pedal and just focusing on breath work and having a cold bath?
Yep. So they're powerful modalities. I mean, I know we talked about this a little before we started the recording, but most of the most powerful healing modalities are all free. They're what nature has provided us. And I'm a big fan of better living through science. I have all sorts of high-end biohacking gadgets and gear, and that's kind of my hobby, and I love to dive into that stuff. But really, at the end of the day, you don't need to spend thousands of dollars and buy all these man-made technologies. You just need to get out in nature and mimic nature in the way that it provides our bodies with this healing. So when it comes to breath work, most people don't know how to breathe. And I know your listeners are probably like, what are you talking about, man? We'd be dead if we weren't breathing. Well, most people are shallow mouth breathers. They're breathing in and out through their mouths. They're breathing these shallow, short breaths into the chest. They're not doing any deep diaphragmatic breathing, which is really where we have the most concentration of alveoli in our lungs that really helps to oxygenate our body. So we talked about the importance of water. Well, I think everyone understands the importance of oxygen. The thing is, most people are breathing in a way that's causing all sorts of health ailments, not even realizing it. And so we want to always breathe in through our nose, because we have a whole bunch of nervous system receptors in our nostrils that help to calm the body, help to reduce stress, help to normalize blood pressure, help to really enhance our entire hormonal system. And so we always want to be breathing in and out through our nose as just everyday movements. And then we want to also focus on breathing deep into the belly, not just doing these shallow chest breaths. And when you start to do more focused breath work, like you're referring to, there's a few categories of this breath work. I'm a super passionate about all these. I've done extensive 3 and 4 day workshops on practitioner training for different breath work modalities. And so you have your kind of calm, relaxing kind of yoga style breath work most people think of when you say breath work, like in through the nose, into the belly, slow and relaxed exhale, very efficacious for slowing down the heart rate and to relax the nervous system, because most of us are in this constant state of fight or flight, stressful, parasympathetic dominant nervous system, which is an important aspect of our physiology. But when we're there all the time, we start to get a lot of deleterious effects to our health and our adrenal glands and our thyroid and so on. And so we want to be able to drop into our more relaxed, rest and digest, parasympathetic nervous system state. And one of the best ways to do that is through your breath. You take 5-second inhale through your nose, fill up the belly, and then doing double the length of exhale, a nice 10-second exhale. And just 6 of those 15-second breaths has been shown in studies to really drop you into a parasympathetic state, lower blood pressure, relax the body. Takes a whopping 90 seconds. So if you're sitting in traffic, you're upset, something happened, you're upset, do this relaxing breath work. You can do it in the evenings. You can do it before you eat. And it's very powerful. People underestimate the power of our breath. It's the best tool that we have at our disposal, that it's one of the few autonomic nervous system functions we have control over. So it's a very, very powerful tool that we all have the ability to tap into, yet most people go their entire lives without thinking twice about their breath. Second category of breath work I'm a big fan of is more of this energizing, oxygenating breath work, like a Wim
Yeah.
Hof style. And I'm a big fan of this as well. And this is where you would be laying or seated, or you could do it standing. I do it standing all the time. I don't recommend it first time because you could get a little lightheaded, but you're really hyperoxygenating the body and modifying your O2 and CO2 levels that can create this completely different state of mind. You literally get high on your own supply. And I'm talking about the best kind of high, man, not just like a drug induced high. This is a natural, clean burning, euphoric, dopamine inducing high that gets you, it's a great mood boost, a great energy boost. I do this style of breath work nearly every morning when I wake up, a practice that was created by Wim Hof's brother, Marcel Hof, called dopamine activation breath work. And I love it. And that's where you would take like 30 to 50 deep breaths, really oxygenate the body, and then couple that with breath holds to really elicit this different state change in our bodies. Yep. And that's a powerful practice as well. Then the third category of breath work is more of this holotropic, shamanic style breath work, which is very intense. I love this from an emotional healing standpoint. It is powerful medicine, my friend. It's like 10 years of therapy in 1 hour. I mean, what happens when we do this shamanic breath work, which just explains to your listeners, is this deep rhythmic breathing for prolonged periods of time. Like I'm talking 30 to 60 minutes. And what happens is we get this concept called transient hyperfrontality. And what that means is it's slowing down the overactivation of our frontal lobe. And our frontal lobe is our monkey mind. That's our ego. That's all the mental chatter that's always distracting us, that's always giving us these limiting beliefs and bullshit. And when we start to slow down the function of that, we could get deeper into our emotions. We could clear past trauma. We could blast through some of these negative thought patterns we find ourselves in. And it's just such a therapeutic approach to provide what I would argue is some of the most profound healing anyone could do over the course of a 1 hour period.
I fully agree. I fully agree. I actually had a pretty crazy experience. I've been doing breath work for a while, and I went to a shamanic person over here. We're actually going to get him on the show to speak about the experience that I went through, because I just didn't understand. Like, I left it, I was like, I got what I needed from it. But I came away, I was like, oh, oh. So yeah, it's. I totally can understand. It really is. It kind of unlocks a lot of doors that you might not have known that you'd closed or were there. So it's a very big.
It's amazing, man. And it really gets us into this deeper emotional state where you bawl your eyes out, you'll scream, you'll cry, you'll have these emotional releases that are so healthy for us to let go of. You know, we're all carrying around all this past bullshit of things that have happened to us, that, you know, mistakes that we've made throughout our journey, and it's not serving us. It's holding us back from getting to that next level. And this breath work is such a powerful tool to blast through those and let go of some of those past things that have happened to us. So those are kind of the three categories of breath work. I know that's a long way of answering your question of basically saying, when you tap into the power of your breath, amazing things happen to your physiology, to your psychology. So your entire brain and body just get on a whole nother level, and you are able to elicit these different responses that are powerful, very powerful. Then going on to the second part of your question with cold thermogenesis, another thing I'm super passionate about. So I have just right out here in outside my office, I have a big ice freezer that I keep at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what the Celsius, I think it would be 3 or 4 degrees Celsius or somewhere around there. Very cold water. And
yeah, you're two below us. You're two below us. I was gonna say we're like, oh.
Yeah. So I go in this on a pretty regular basis for 3 to 5 minutes, and cold exposure elicits a very powerful anti-inflammatory response. So it's a very quick way to rapidly quell inflammation from a systemic standpoint in the body, to make joint pain, back pain, all sorts of different ailments just rapidly resolve. And then it also is amazing for eliciting this hormonal cascade. You get a big upsurge of norepinephrine and growth hormone, which are amazing feel-good different chemicals within our body that elicit more fat burning, that elicit great energy producing, that just make you feel like $1,000,000. And then, as you alluded to, I think one of the biggest things with cold thermogenesis is just building that mental muscle, right? That mental resilience. Because if anyone has done cold exposure, they know it's one of the hardest, most painful things you could do. I mean, it is tough. When you're getting into that water, it is never fun. It never gets easier. You could replicate this with a cold shower. Not so much out in Bali in your neck of the woods, Simon. They don't get that cold out there,
No.
but in colder climates, a cold shower could do, or hopping in a lake, ocean, stream, river, all these types of things to really get uncomfortable, and putting yourself into this uncomfortable scenario day in and day out builds this confidence and this willpower muscle to enable you to carry that forward and over into other aspects of your life. So you really build this amazing mental resilience that is really profound, that I'm a huge fan of as well. And I mean, I could talk even more about the benefits physiologically of the colds, but the bottom line here is that it is a powerful practice that doesn't take long at all. It's not like a workout where you may need 20, 30 minutes. It is 2 to 3 minutes to elicit a lot of the kind of minimum effective dose benefits from this practice. And you just feel so freaking amazing afterward. It just lights up your whole system and you're on fire for the rest of the day. So it's way better than a cup of coffee in my book. And then kind of getting into the groove of doing it, you start to just see how that carries over into other parts of your life.
I always love with this sort of stuff. I always think if you can be, if your first portion of your first hour to 90 minutes is just you're disciplined, you win the battle of discipline. I focus on these 5 things, which is hydration, breath, mental clarity, winning a battle of confidence, i.e. the cold therapy. I think if you focus on those things individually in the morning, your confidence, your discipline, your drive through the day, you've done the hard stuff. Does that make sense? So like when it comes to business decisions and stuff like that, it's a lot easier to go, you feel better, you're charged, you're more clearer, you really do just fly through the day. And I know in my own experience, when this is how I think this whole holistic thing has, I can't wait to see where this is in the next coming years, because I think it's just getting spoke about and people aren't weirded out by it and going, oh, this is hippie shit. Yeah, like, do you know what I mean? So
yeah, too much science to back it these days to
exactly.
argue with it. I mean, that's the thing. All the research is catching up with these concepts. And so even the naysayers can't really argue with it.
Exactly. And this is what I love about how it's always a bit of a delayed thing from when it comes onto the scene. People judge it, critique it, and then they do it. And it's like, oh. But what I love about this is I have like 4 or 5 things. And if I don't do one of them, it messes my day. And I can tell, like, be it either the journaling practice, the breathwork practice, even the cold work practice physically, I know when I've not done one of those things because I've become that conscious of what I'm doing every day now. I'm starting to see how these little things are affecting certain areas. So I really think for people, it's like, you've got to go and try these things, work on how it, like, be aware enough to go, this benefits me here. Go into it with an open mind and then just try and embed these things into the routine that suits you best.
Yep, spot on, man. You hit it right on the head. And that's why I love explaining the benefits of this, because that gives you the motivation to try it. And then once you experience it, there's no going back. I mean, you're open up to a whole new world of and a whole new way of living that's profound. And like you mentioned as well, I'm a huge component of this concept that really what it comes down to is getting these wins early in the day. It's going to fuel your self confidence, your belief in yourself, and that's going to carry over, like you said, in your business, in your relationships, and just enable you to show up as this really empowered version of who you really are. And getting these practices that are hard to do, you don't want to do them. Every part of your monkey mind is saying, you don't have to do this. Just go grab your coffee and, stay in your warm robe and you'll be fine. And then you say, fuck that. I'm going to do it. I know I can do it. And then you conquer that battle and you're just like building that momentum, because life is all about momentum, right? And you're on this upswing of momentum that carries over. That's just a really, really beneficial thing for, like I mentioned, your health. I mean, the longevity promoting benefits and the physiological benefits are just a bonus to the mental and psychological and emotional benefits that you really get deep into with these practices.
Oh, totally, 100%. I'd love to speak to you, Ryan, on all of this, because predominantly, men and women are different at the end of the day. And I actually, like, women have it harder than guys. So, for example, every 3rd week or whatnot, women undergo cycles and stuff along the lines of that, where they have uncontrollable factors or uncontrollable to a certain degree, which will affect mood, which will affect their gut, which will affect certain things, even motivation, inspiration, XYZ, you name it. I'd love to speak to you more direct towards our female proponent of our audience. Do you have any advice that can help women? Because another thing that I've started to notice, especially in like even female business owners, which we've helped and we've consulted with and things along the lines of that, like even when it is coming to that time, so to speak, or even the menopause in our older generation, they really struggle. They really struggle when it comes to that cycle. And the other thing is, it's like the before, the build up, the through, and then the drop off. So it's not just actually the time when it's on, it's the actual process of coming into the cycle and all that sort of stuff. So I'd love to speak, like, now that we've got an expert with all of this sort of stuff on, have you got any tips, any advice that our women, our female audience can actually start looking into, or techniques such as like the ice stuff, which will actually benefit them?
Absolutely. I work with a lot of female patients on this exact topic because I can't tell you how high a percentage of women suffer from really these unpleasant symptoms around their menstrual cycle. Mood instability, bloating, irritability, low energy, just feeling lousy, painful cramps, you name it, Simon. It's widespread in our society. And so it really comes back to this concept of this hormonal optimization, right? Because it's the influx and changes in their hormones that are causing some of these symptoms and, eliciting this menstrual cycle, which is obviously a good thing, shows that they're fertile and that they're healthy enough to conceive a child. And so a couple tips from a lifestyle perspective that I find powerful. So during your month away from your cycle, not minimizing, but modulating your consumption of sugars and starches, and not having this constant roller coaster of blood glucose and insulin spikes that really deplete your energy, really damage your hormones. And I'm not talking about following some strict ketogenic diet. I'm talking about just not eating a ton of refined carbohydrates, really sticking to high quality proteins, healthy fats, and, modulating some carbohydrates in the evenings to a very moderate amount based on your activity level. Now, a lot of women know this and they follow this kind of lower carbohydrate diet. They feel good for the whole month. And then their period hits and they feel lousy. I'm going to tell you the biggest key to overcome this. I want all the women to listen up here because this is huge. And it has been a game changer for all of my female patients. For the time period leading up to your period, almost every woman gets carbohydrate cravings, right? They crave chips, cookies, crackers, sugary stuff, whatever, whether salty or sugar is their thing. They crave carbohydrates. And a lot of women who are these strong, empowered entrepreneurial women like you're talking about, they're tough ladies. They're like, cravings, I'll power through it. Don't power through it. This is your body signaling that increasing your carbohydrate consumption for the 2 to 4 days leading up to your menstrual cycle is a good thing. What this will do is it will increase insulin, which is important for a lot of thyroid hormone conversions and just hormonal conversions in general, to create this synergy within your monthly cycle. So have a higher carbohydrate diet in those 2 to 4 days leading up to your menstrual cycle. And I'm not talking about going out and binging on chips, but having some fruit and some sweet potatoes and yams and winter squash and white rice and clean starches that aren't going to be inflammatory to the body, but are going to supply your body with those much needed carbohydrates, because those cravings are your innate intelligence saying, we need to upregulate blood sugar and insulin, because that will allow us to make these hormonal conversions to make our cycle flow so much better and reduce some of these menstrual symptoms that are non-desirable. The other thing with this is during your period, a lot of women don't have much appetite. They don't really have a lot of cravings. They don't really have a lot of desire to eat. This is actually the time of the month that's great for some intermittent fasting. Eating a little bit less, having a more compressed eating window, and doing a longer water fast, whether that be on a daily or doing a couple day water fast, is the perfect time to kind of cycle this in, and not trying to do this strict intermittent fasting 30 days of the month. That oftentimes leads to hormonal and thyroid and adrenal imbalances in women. And so we really want to work with your cycle, not against it. I'm all about this biointegration rather than biohacking, and bringing in a carbohydrates pre-menstrual cycle, low carbohydrates, more fasting during your period, and then the rest of the month having a nice balance between the two is going to ensure that you're creating this environment in your body to have this proper hormonal balance. And then a couple more tips I want to share on this. There's a one of the things I find that most women get massive resolution with, I'll share two things with you, Simon. One is magnesium. So when you get menstrual cramps, those are muscle cramps. And whether you're getting a muscle cramp like a Charlie horse in your calf, like you and I might get after some hard training, Simon, or you're getting menstrual cramps, it often has to do with imbalances in minerals. Like we talked about before, the importance of minerals. Well, magnesium is like our body's master mineral. And if you start taking anywhere from 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium from a high quality supplement, one of my favorite forms is magnesium glycinate. Yep. Taking it in the morning and then in the evening before bed on a regular basis. Keep in mind, to get your intracellular magnesium levels up, you can't just take it for a week and expect your menstrual cramps to go away. You need to take it on a regular basis for a few months to really get your intracellular levels up. It could take 8 to 12 weeks. You will get a massive, massive resolution in the severity and discomfort from your menstrual cramps. So getting adequate magnesium is huge for that. And then one more thing I'll leave your audience with. There's an herb called cramp bark that can really help as a more of an acute therapy during your menstrual cycle. Herb Farm, and farm is spelled P-H-A-R-M. And maybe you can put these things in the show notes if you do show notes, Simon. But Herb Farm, cramp bark, an amazing herbal natural formula for women to utilize during their period if they're getting painful cramps that can really help reduce some of the severity so they don't have to reach for painkillers or NSAIDs or things that may not be so healthy for their body as a way to manage those symptoms.
Right, and I really appreciate that, mate. That's kind of a big thing I've been trying to get someone on to speak about for a while. So thank you. I think that will definitely help a lot of people. The next little thing I'd love to speak on before we start to round this up is sleep. A lot of us I find a lot of people, especially in the business world, have sleep issues, just not sleeping. I know for myself, when I was very early into doing things, I just didn't sleep. I would more write a book or build something than sleep, and then it would screw me over a week down the line. There's people who can't sleep, and then there's people that really struggle to wake up through sleep. Sleep really is a big thing. We spend a third of our life pretty much unconscious asleep. So how can we optimize our sleep? Because obviously the research is now coming out through the masses, how poor sleep is actually a big indicator of fat gain, obesity, health issues, testosterone decline, cancer, the works. So have you got any tips, any advice on sleep that we can kind of throw out there as well?
Yep, you're 100% correct. Sleep, poor sleep quality and lack of adequate sleep volume really destroys your health. Doesn't matter how perfect your diet is, how great your exercise program is. If you're not sleeping and recovering well at night, your health will suffer. So I am a huge sleep proponent, and there's a number of strategies I want to cover here. I'll try and keep it a little more brief. So in the morning, your sleep really starts that day in the morning, because a lot of sleep disturbances and poor sleep quality comes back to our circadian rhythm. And this 24-hour biological clock that signals our body when to wake, when to sleep, and when to upregulate different hormones and compounds within our bodies. Most people have severe circadian rhythm disruption because they're not getting outside for morning sunlight to signal the start of the day. And then they're staying up late, surrounded by these artificial junk lights like overhead lights, computers, cell phones, tablets, laptops, TVs, you name it. And that's emitting a high spectrum of blue lights. Now, blue light is not bad. Blue light's very, very important. We want it during the day. The sun emits a lot of blue lights, but it suppresses melatonin production. Blue light helps us feel awake and energized. We do not want to feel awake and energized right before bed. So really minimizing your time under artificial lights in front of devices and screens in the last hour or two before bed is a great strategy. Now, a couple of things you could do for this that are helpful, because we live in the 21st century. A lot of people use these devices for leisure, for business, and I myself find myself sometimes past sundown using these devices. You can get some blue light blocking glasses. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with them. They may wear them already, but these are just some orange or amber tinted glasses that block a lot of the blue and sometimes even green spectrum of lights that can cause this suppression of melatonin production, melatonin being our sleep hormone. And so popping those glasses on an hour or two before bed, very helpful to help to realign the circadian rhythm, improve sleep quality. And then getting out in the middle of the day for sensible sun exposure. In addition to the morning light, we want to get out in the middle of the day because the sun, when we're near solar noon, is the most powerful to really hit our skin. And like I talked about with the solar panel analogy with our bodies, we synthesize a whole bunch of different hormones. We synthesize vitamin D. We produce all of these different endorphins. It's one of the best mood, energy, health promoting practices anyone can do, is to get outside with as little clothing as you can. If you're in your backyard, you're in a private area, be as close to naked as you can. That's my strategy. But I understand if you live in a community area, don't break any laws here. Just roll up your sleeves, wear some shorts, all that kind of good stuff. And the key here is sensible. We want to get responsible sun exposure because sun in excess will burn us, and burns are not good for our skin. Whether it's from the sun, the stovetop, hot water, we don't want to burn our skin. It is damaging and inflammatory to our skin. So we want to be out for anywhere from 10 to maybe 20 minutes at a time. And this is in the peak of the day with no sunscreen on. And depending on the fairness of your skin and your proximity to the equator, these numbers will vary. But ultimately, especially during summertime, getting out around 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for 10 to 20 minutes with as little clothes on as possible and soaking up the healing, health promoting benefits of natural sunlight is such a freaking powerful practice. And that will help with sleep quality, and along with things we could talk about an hour for, but don't to be putting sunscreen on because that blocks a lot of UVB that helps us synthesize vitamin D and melanin. Our skin part makes us tan, this kind of built-in protective mechanism with the sun. And so we want to make it a shorter time. And after that 10 to 20 minute window, put on a hat, find some shade, put on a long sleeve so that you don't get burns. Because I'll tell you what's even worse than getting burned, Simon, lathering on these conventional chemical-filled sunscreen garbage and then laying out on the beach for 3-4 hours because you're like, oh, I put on my sunscreen, I'm protected. That is what causes skin cancer, not just the sun. The sun is anti-cancer. The sun is very healing to our bodies. So going back to the sleep, sensible sun exposure during the day, fantastic. As we get into the evening, we want to start unwinding. So many people are checking emails, scrolling on social media, watching these stimulating Netflix series that just get your minds going. And this is not how to unwind, man. We want to start to relax the body. So we want to have practices where we, at least 30 minutes before bed, ideally closer to an hour, we shut off all the electronics. We put the phone on airplane mode. We dim the lights, and we do some deep stretching, some deep breathing. We have some intimate time with our partner. We chat with friends. We maybe do some journaling. We read a book. And I'm not talking about an ebook. I mean a physical book, my friend, with paper that's not going to be blasting your eyes with light. These are going to be amazing strategies to help unwind, relax. You can grab a couple herbal tea like chamomile or valerian roots, herbs that really help us relax and improve sleep quality. And then I could talk for an hour on sleep supplements. I've gone deep down the rabbit hole on this, but I'll talk about a couple of my favorites that I find work for a lot of people.
Perfect.
So these practices are the foundation, really dialing in your sleep. And then you could track your sleep with a device like the Oura Ring or Whoop, which gives you objective data to show you how much these practices are really moving the needle. And then when it comes to supplements, a couple natural compounds that are very health promoting in general really help us get into deeper, more restorative stages of sleep. Because just like junk food, we could get junk sleep. So we could sleep for 8 hours and wake up and feel drowsy and be sluggish and need 5 cups of coffee in order to get our shit done during the day. And that's not how we want to be. So what I'm going to suggest is apply these practices to not only increase your ability to fall asleep and stay asleep, but to actually get optimal quality sleep so you get the right restoration and rejuvenation throughout the night. And then as far as supplements, I talked about magnesium, super critical. Taking anywhere from 100 to 200 milligrams of magnesium is great before bed. I'm a big fan of 5-HTP, which is an amino acid. It's actually the converted form of tryptophan, a precursor to serotonin, so it could also help with mood. Taking about 100 milligrams of 5-HTP can really help ramp up deep sleep in a lot of my clients. So I find that to be a pretty efficacious, affordable supplement that's great. Reishi mushroom and also lion's mane mushroom are 2 medicinal mushrooms that could really help with sleep quality, and a lot of research done on those. Supplemental melatonin can help some people, but I'm not a huge fan of it. To be honest with you, a lot of people develop psychological addiction to melatonin where they feel like they need it to fall asleep, when in reality, it's not really doing that much for your body. I'm not against it. Ultimately, a
That's what
decent
I did.
quality. Yeah.
When I was traveling, I had a lot of like jet lag flights, and I kind of noticed it'd become a bit of a crutch. I was like just using it just to get to sleep, and then it had started to affect naturally getting to sleep.
Yep. It could be a powerful tool. I'm not opposed to it, especially a lower dose. And then when you are traveling time zones, like you mentioned with jet lag, high dose melatonin in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 milligrams, depending on how far you're traveling, is actually a great way to reset and realign the circadian rhythm and kind of hack jet lag, so to say. So I'm a fan of using it in those acute scenarios. I find it particularly helpful. And then other supplements when it comes to sleep. Some people can really benefit from additional amino acids before bed. So getting like a good grass-fed collagen or sipping on a little bit of bone broth can be very helpful to supply your brain with the right amino acids that are precursors to our neurotransmitters. And on this topic of amino acids, one thing I forgot is one of the biggest components to good quality sleep, to burning fat, to good body composition, to great digestive health is eating an early dinner. I cannot stress this enough, man. Most people are eating way too late in the night, even if they're doing some sort of intermittent fasting in the morning. I know we didn't dive into meal timing as in depth, but just to touch on it briefly, you do not want to be eating within 3 hours of bed because your body diverts so much of its energy towards digestion that it doesn't have the same capacity of energy to divert towards recovery, repair, detoxification, all these other things that transcribe when we're sleeping. So we want to eat earlier in the evening, ideally, in my opinion, 4 to 5 hours before bed is typically a sweet spot for most people. So if you go to bed at, let's say, I don't know, let's say 10 p.m., having a 6 p.m. dinner, that's going to be a great strategy for many folks. And even 5 p.m., if you really want to ramp up fat burning throughout the night, you want to go to a sleep in a semi-fasted state. Because when you go to sleep right after this big hunkin' meal, you have this surplus of calories right before your body has next to no energy expenditure. And guess what's going to happen to all that food? It's going to be stored as body fat. So we don't want to be eating this big meal before bed. It's also going to minimize the time our gut has without food in it, without having to work to really repair and rejuvenate in the gut. So it's damaging to gut health. And then on top of that, when you eat earlier, you're kind of creating the opposite scenario. You're actually tapping into stored body fat as overnight fuel, which is a great strategy to overcome obesity or to get into a healthy weight and good body composition. And that will tie directly into better sleep, which then perpetuates this really positive cycle. Because when you're sleeping better, you have more energy to work out the next day and to eat healthier and to make better choices. And when you're sleeping poorly, the opposite's the case. You feel tired, your willpower is low, your cravings are high, your hormones are out of whack, your blood sugar regulation is garbage. And so, we can't stress sleep enough. And I could go into some other supplements if you like. I think those are some good foundational ones for people to get started with. I don't want to rattle off 10 different supplements and leave people feeling overwhelmed. Because I know this is a lot for people who are just getting into this world. You know, you and I talk about it and we've been immersed in it for years and years. And it's a big passion for both of us, Simon. So I understand that everyone's starting from a different place. Both of us started from square one, just like everyone else who's out there listening to this conversation, who's like, man, these guys are talking about a lot of stuff. I haven't done any of them. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Don't feel overwhelmed. Just start with one or two things and really build layers and start to create some positive momentum in the right direction.
100%. I was going to say, if you've took a lot from this show, the first thing you can do is just get perfectly on time, drink more water, just do that for a week and see how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
But Ryan, look, I totally want to respect your time. Obviously, this is going to be the first, if I can imagine, many with this moving forwards. But I'd love to know from you first. Like, we always ask these questions to people, and I always like to round up the shows on them. So, Ryan, if you could go back to an early time in your life before you knew all of this stuff, and you could give the younger version of yourself some advice to help him as he is today, what would you say to little Ryan? What would be your words of advice? Could be something to do with nutrition, life advice, business advice, mindset advice, whatever. What's a piece of advice you would give to little Ryan to help him in future life?
That's an excellent question. And there's a lot of directions I could go with this. I would say Two biggest things would be to dial in your morning routine using the same practices you and I talked about in this show and how that's going to carry over into your life. And two, understand that learning is not a chore the way that it is created and molded by the conventional schooling system. Learning is a gift, and find what you're passionate about. Learn, learn, learn. I listen to upwards of 40 to 50 hours of podcasts and audiobooks a week. And I have a busy full-time private practice, Simon, but this is anytime I'm exercising, walking, doing chores around the house, just anytime I'm doing anything, I always am learning and I love it. And whether it's self-development, business, health, you name it, there's so many areas we could learn to better our lives. And I've become such a, lover of learning. And so I would tell my younger self, because I always used to despise reading and, we were forced to study things we disliked in school systems, and just understanding that that's not the way. And there's so many things that we all are interested in that we could learn more about, that we could turn into a profitable business or a profitable career, and absolutely love what we do on a daily basis. And that's really the key. And that's what I think a lot of people miss with the way that we're raised in this, in this kind of modern world of the way school is done. And so those would be my two things: morning routine and learn all that you can.
Yeah, I can stand with you on that. I used to suck at learning until I realized why, and something that excites me to go and learn it. And then it was just no stopping, just constant. And then last but not least, Ryan, final question. What does it mean to you to be able to lead a nourished life?
A nourished life is to wake up with the energy, vitality, mood, and well-being to do what you love. Now, whether that's in your work, in your personal life, in your relationships, or all of the above, it's having the foundational elements in your psychology and physiology to excel and to feel good while you're doing it, and to really be in this positive, ultra high quality life. That's what it's all about, man.
Love it. Ryan, look, you've been amazing on the show. Obviously, this is a conversation where it's lots of depends. It can go all over the show. Just work out what does best for you. I think that's probably the best place that people can start, and just start trying things. Ryan, what's next? Where can people find you? Where can people get in contact with you? Where do you hang around online?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram, at Ryan C. Kennedy. You could find me there. I post stuff pretty much daily in terms of recipes, on nutrition tips, exercise stuff, lifestyle stuff, all of the above that we talked about in this conversation. You could check out my website, ryan-kennedy.com, to learn more about my functional medicine practice. I do run a virtual worldwide practice. I work with people from all across the globe. So if you're looking to become a new patient, you could learn more information there. And then you could check out my book that we talked about, Beyond Nutrition, on my website. And those would probably be the best places. I'm on Facebook, but not quite as active. So Instagram and website are probably the top two.
Ryan, look, total acknowledgement. This mind-blowing conversation. You clearly, there's so many different angles of knowledge and wealth of wisdom that has just come and just been dropped on this show. There's a lot that people can definitely take away from that. So, Ryan, look, thank you for spending some time with us. And guys, if you're all listening, take a screenshot. Let us know what you've taken away from it. We'd love to know. So, Ryan, thanks.
It's my pleasure, Simon. Look forward to connecting with you again soon, man.